He's so dumb. He'll never leave us. That was the message she sent, accidentally, to her husband of 34 years. She thought he'd do nothing. She didn't know he used to build entire cities. Or that silence, in the right hands, can become the deadliest weapon. Let's begin. My name is Harold Beckett. I'm 63 years old. I used to work in municipal development, a quiet man with a quiet life, the kind who fixed door hinges without asking, and preheated the car in the winter because his wife hated the cold. My wife's name is Dana. Or at least, she used to be that woman. The one I married. The one who laughed at my dry jokes and folded my socks in neat rolls. But people change. Slowly. Sometimes in silence. And sometimes they slip up. It was a Tuesday when I got the message. I was out on the back deck with my old spinning reel, trying to untangle the line, sipping lukewarm coffee when my phone buzzed. A text from Dana. Nothing strange. Her name on the screen with that bubble tone she reserved for the grandkids, or when she wanted the Amex. I almost didn't check it, but I did. He's so dumb. He'll never leave us. Us. Not me. Not him. Us. Like I was the loyal dog that didn't realize I'd been replaced. Seconds later, another message. Oops. Wrong person. Not I'm sorry. Not I'm messed up. Just oops. Like she'd dropped the wrong emoji in the wrong chat. As if she'd spilled wine on a napkin. That was her confession. A smirking typo. And I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the phone. I just sat there, holding the reel, watching the spool of silence unwind. Because something had snapped. Finally, the fog I'd been living in for years began to lift. The late nights. The book club sessions. The perfume she only wore when she wasn't around me. The yoga mat that returned home dry. Everything clicked into place with the quiet certainty of a man who knew how to draft blueprints from memory. So I texted back. Want to bet? Then I screenshot the thread, dropped it into a folder labeled Roofing Estimates, and erased the chat. That was the moment my silence stopped being submission and became strategy. That night, she came home around 10:30 p.m., smelling like red wine, fresh lotion, and someone else's attention. She kissed me on the forehead like I was her senile uncle in hospice. How was your day, honey? She chirped. Uneventful, I said. Just sorted out the garage. Cleaned the rods. She smiled like I was adorable. Forgettable. Then floated upstairs, her heels clicking like punctuation. She didn't know the game had begun. But I did. And I wasn't playing checkers anymore. You don't set a trap with anger. You set it with stillness. You don't spring it in rage. You let it coil in patience. The next morning, Dana hummed while she poured her coffee. Lipstick on, blush too perfect for yoga class. Dana hated yoga. Always had. Said it was just stretching for people too afraid to run. Now suddenly, she was doing it 3 days a week. She came back from these classes, glowing. Not from endorphins, but attention. I'm proud of you, I said as she adjusted her lipstick by the toaster. She paused. For what? For staying active, I smiled. Gotta keep that core strong. She laughed, but there was a tightness behind it. The laugh of someone walking across a bridge they burned and hoping the smoke wouldn't reach their shoes. I watched everything. The dishwasher had 2 wine glasses, one with nude pink lipstick. Not her usual cherry shade. The fridge had calamari leftovers. Dana gagged at calamari. A strange scarf in the laundry. Earrings I didn't buy. The faint smell of masculine cologne on her coat. She was getting sloppy. I didn't confront her. I opened the safe in my garage. Inside, an old cigar box sealed with electrical tape. I hadn't touched it in a decade. Inside was a single business card. Ren Wallace. A fixer. A ghost. The kind of man who never asked why. Just delivered answers. He once helped me get rid of a city contractor, siphoning off grant money. His work was quiet, legal adjacent, and surgical. I texted him. Still in business. 3 seconds later. Depends who's asking. I sent a screenshot of Dana's message. Harold Beckett. Need a clean trail. 2 locations. 1 week. Photo proof. He responded with just a thumbs up emoji. That night, Dana returned with the same routine. Wine-slick smile, exaggerated yawn. Shoes kicked off, fake affection. How was your evening? She asked, like I hadn't already mapped her footsteps from the restaurant on Franklin to her lover's loft near Caldwell Avenue. Quiet, I said, sipping chamomile tea I didn't even like. Might get back into fishing. Her eyes blinked slowly. You haven't fished in years. Exactly. She hummed something soft. Fleetwood Mac. She always said that band made her feel young again. That phrase stuck with me. It wasn't about feeling young. It was about someone making her feel wanted. I understood that. Hell, I once did that for her. 34 years ago. The next morning, a package arrived. No return address. Just an envelope, thick, manila, and weighted down with a small lead sinker. An old fishing reference only Rin would have thought poetic. Inside were 8 glossy photos. Dana, hair up, laughing into a wine glass. That look she used to give me in '95. A man sitting beside her. Fit, polished, fake smile, salt and pepper temples, cufflinks. He had one hand on her back. Another photo. He was kissing her fingers like she was royalty. And the last one, Dana exiting his apartment at dawn, hair damp, coat misbuttoned, and lipstick smeared like a confession. I laid the photos out like evidence at trial. But not for confrontation. No, these were the blueprints. I tucked them inside our living trust binder. Beneath it, a leather folio labeled emergency contacts. I added the photos, zipped it shut, and called Jared Klein, our accountant of 22 years. Jared, I said, I need to separate the portfolios. Quietly. Dana doesn't need to know. Not yet. He paused. Is everything okay, Harold? Just a precaution. You know how storms are. Sometimes they show up with no warning. I gave instructions to change all account login details. Dana's access, removed. Our joint investments, split. Statements redirected. No alerts sent to her email. When I hung up, I returned to the garage and stared at a spool of 80 pounds test line labeled stinger hooks. Hooks for fish that thrash hard. Dana was a thrasher. She didn't know she was already caught. And the worst part for her, I wasn't even angry. I was just clear. The day after, I got a call from Alice Geller, a legal consultant I hadn't spoken to in 6 years. Sharp as razors. Voice like gravel and bourbon. She got wind of something. You know a guy named Riley Carrick? She asked. I blinked. Name's familiar. It should be. He's seeing your wife. A short silence. She doesn't know we're friends, does she? Alice added, swirling her coffee. No, I said. She also doesn't know he used to be on a blacklist I helped write when I was on the ethics board. Well, Alice smiled. He's about to be nominated for a major public board seat. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just a fling. Riley wasn't just the guy giving Dana compliments and oysters. He was image conscious. He had ambition. And Dana? She was leverage. A pawn wrapped in perfume. You think he knows who I am? I asked. I doubt it. Then, I said slowly, let's fix that. Alice leaned in. Dinner. I nodded. Marlowe's. Thursday. Table for 2. I'll handle the reservation. Just for something that says, I know your secrets. Her smirk widened. Darling, that's my entire wardrobe. Marlowe's was the kind of place that knew the weight of silence. Soft jazz hummed like background breath. Waiters glided rather than walked. And the white linen felt like it had never known a wrinkle. It was a restaurant Dana once called Too Stuffy. Funny how the same place became her playground once Riley started taking her there. I arrived 15 minutes early, always did. Wore the navy button-down Dana had gifted me just days ago, her attempt at damage control. She said she saw it and thought of me. But she forgot. I hate navy. Said it made me look older. She used to laugh about it in our 20s. Apparently, memory fades faster when you're rewriting your history. Tonight, I wore it proudly. Alice arrived right on time, dressed like she owned equity in half the city. Black heels, burgundy silk blouse, subtle jewelry. She smiled as she took the seat across from me. You look rested, she said. I've been sleeping better, I replied. Truth's lighter than guilt. We sipped wine, made small talk, and waited. At 7:08, they walked in. Riley, sharp suit, perfectly measured arrogance, hand on the small of Dana's back. Dana, radiant, red dress I hadn't seen in years, pearls, hair curled to perfection. Her expression was light, confident, glowing, until her eyes landed on our table. The change was surgical. Smile stiffened, eyes locked, and then confusion, panic. She whispered something sharp in Riley's ear. He turned, scanned the room, and froze when he saw Alice. Then me. That's when it sank in. Not only had he been caught in an affair, he was sitting across from the woman who had the power to end his political climb before it started, and the man who used to regulate zoning loopholes for a living. They were 2 tables away, and suddenly everything about that restaurant, its lighting, Its openness felt like a courtroom, a silent trial. I leaned toward Alice. Is this too cruel? She didn't look up, just dabbed her mouth with a napkin. If it were cruel, she said calmly, he'd be bleeding. Riley tried to play it cool, but his knuckles were white on the edge of his menu. Dana, she unraveled slowly. Her fingers tightened on her wine glass. Her jaw clenched. Her smile, that practiced social grin she wore like armor, cracked. Every time Alice laughed at one of my jokes, and she did laugh, genuinely, Dana's eyes flicked toward us like knives. At one point, Riley stood, started toward our table. I looked up calmly and shook my head. Not tonight. This table's for adults, I said aloud, just loud enough to travel. Riley paused, halfway between his intentions and his regrets. Then he turned and sat back down, face flushed, ears red. Dinner continued. Quiet. Measured. Alice and I discussed old cases, the property dispute in Barton Hills, her firm's new expansion, my greenhouse rebuild. Dana sat through her untouched steak. Across the room, I saw her staring at the life she used to know, wondering when it slipped from her hands. She hadn't lost it. She'd traded it for cheap flattery and a fragile man with a polished resume and rotting ethics. By the end of the meal, Riley stood again. This time, jaw clenched so tight it looked like he might crack his own teeth. He approached. I turned toward him slowly, met his eyes, and said again, softly, not tonight. Alice didn't even flinch, didn't look up, didn't offer him a glance. Her silence said everything. Riley hesitated, fumed, then stormed past the hostess and out the front door like a man who'd just watched his reputation implode. Dana stayed seated, frozen, like a statue. She didn't follow him. She didn't even blink. Alice raised her glass to me. You played that perfectly. It wasn't a game, I said calmly. It was a mirror. That night, I slept like a man who'd finally stopped apologizing for being quiet. The next morning was still. No jazz. No wine. No perfume laced in guilt. Just the sound of the birds outside and my coffee maker humming its soft, patient drip. At 10 a.m., I was watering the tomato plants when the phone buzzed. Dana. Her name blinked on the screen like a warning light I no longer feared. I let it ring. And ring. Then again. I finally answered after the third round, just to hear it. Harold, her voice cracked, a whisper hiding under panic. You knew. Silence. You knew the whole time, didn't you? I kept my tone level. About what, Dana? That pause. That hesitation where she tried to gauge if it was still safe to lie. You set all this up. You humiliated me. Did you enjoy that? I let out a calm breath. You humiliated yourself the moment you sent that text. Everything after that. Just gravity. I could hear her stifle a sob, but I wasn't unkind. I wasn't cruel. Just clear. What happens now? She asked. I paused, watching a butterfly land on the windowsill. Now we see what's left after the fire. At noon sharp, the courier arrived at her door. The envelope was thick, impersonal, cold. Inside, the drafted separation agreement, the restructured financial accounts, the revocation of joint assets. Not a word about revenge, just silence in legal form. 23 minutes later, the phone exploded with calls. I ignored everyone. Then came the texts. You can't do this. This isn't who you are. We can talk. Please, Harold. I sipped my coffee, poured another, and leaned back in my chair. You erased me. That one made me pause. The irony. She erased me over months. In quiet choices. In every Thursday night lie. In every kiss she gave another man while telling me she had book club. No, I hadn't erased her. She had written herself out. Then, one final text arrived. You think this is justice? And I replied, simply, you should have double-checked your recipients. After that, silence. She didn't respond. Maybe she couldn't. That night, the stars felt brighter. The house, lighter. The memories, clearer. The fog she'd left behind had burned away. I didn't feel victorious. I felt restored. Dana moved in with her sister. Riley's board nomination vanished overnight. Alice had pulled every string, every whisper. The ethics violations, the hidden assets, the backroom deals, it all came out. Quietly. Brutally. 1 week later, I met Alice and Miranda, Riley's ex-wife, at a quiet cafe. Miranda had eyes like storm clouds and a lawyer's precision. She didn't gloat. She didn't laugh. She just placed a file on the table. Inside, every bank slip, Riley tried to hide. Every offshore transaction. Every clause she could weaponize. He's finished, she said simply. Alice raised her espresso. To old friends. And I lifted my mug. To consequences. Weeks passed. Marlowe's dimmed into a memory. Riley's name had vanished from the public board docket like it had never been considered at all. His LinkedIn profile, once a monument to ambition, was wiped clean, seeking new opportunities scrawled beneath a vacant smile. And Dana? She'd returned to her sister's home 2 suburbs over, her world condensed into a single guest bedroom and a yoga mat she no longer had a reason to pretend to use. My house, the house I had once shared with a stranger, was quiet. Not hollow. Not empty. Peaceful. I spent my mornings in the garden, clipping basil and watching squirrels battle over breadcrumbs. The silence no longer echoed. It hummed. The fridge didn't carry secrets. The dishwasher wasn't hiding extra wine glasses. The laundry smelled like detergent, not perfume I didn't recognize. Then, one rainy Thursday afternoon, a knock came at the door. Not a buzz. Not a ring. A knock. I opened it slowly, and there she stood, Dana. Rain matted her curls. She clutched a beige cardigan too thin for the weather. Her eyes, red-rimmed. Hands trembling, not from cold. Can we talk? She asked softly. I didn't move. Her voice cracked. Please. I stepped aside, not out of weakness, but out of finality. Let her speak. Let her unravel the story she'd been writing alone in her head. She stepped inside like it was foreign territory, like a museum exhibit of a life she used to own. The living room was spotless. The couch unchanged. The bookshelf still held her old romance novels she left behind like bookmarks in a story she abandoned. She glanced at them, then back at me. I was stupid, she began, voice barely above a whisper. No, I said gently. You were selfish. She winced like I'd slapped her, but I hadn't raised a finger. Words could be scalpels when used right. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she continued. It was just, at first, he made me feel seen. You were so quiet, always in the garage, always fixing something, never noticing me. I nodded slowly. Maybe I stopped noticing because you started performing. She blinked. The sudden yoga, the perfume, the trips to the market that ended after midnight. I noticed. I just didn't react. Because I was watching you choose someone else, day by day. And I needed to be sure. I never wanted to hurt you. I almost laughed. Not cruelly. Just at the irony. You did, I said calmly. Every Thursday at 7 p.m. You hurt me. Every time you walked in with someone else's cologne on your coat. You didn't trip into betrayal, Dana. You packed a bag and booked the route. She sat down, and for the first time in years, she looked small. Not delicate, just collapsed. Do you love her? She asked. I frowned. Who? Alice. Miranda. Whoever you were with at the restaurant. I sat across from her. I respect them. I trust them. They helped me see the truth. They didn't lie to my face for a year. She lowered her gaze. I lost everything. I didn't respond. She looked around like a tourist in her own past. Her eyes landed on the fireplace mantel. Our wedding photo, still framed in silver. Us, laughing, hands clutched in spring sunlight. Why didn't you fight? She asked. I did, I said. I just didn't use fists. I leaned forward. You fought with deception. I fought with evidence. You gambled with affection. I invested in truth. Dana let out a long, shaky breath. So that's it. I nodded. That's it. She stood, shoulders heavy. Do I at least get to say goodbye? You already did, I replied. The night you chose someone else. She didn't cry. Not in front of me. Dana was always too proud for tears when she couldn't weaponize them. She turned slowly, walked toward the door, paused. I miss us. I tilted my head. You missed the version of me that let you lie. That man's gone. You helped bury him. Then, silence. She stepped into the rain and didn't look back. Months later, Marlowe's had new candles on the tables, lower lighting, a seasonal wine list. Alice said it was their attempt to feel less intimidating. I liked it better now. Fewer people pretending to be more than they were. Less noise. Less theater. I met Miranda there again. She wore green this time, soft silk and elegance without effort. Her laugh had grown warmer. Her stories, more playful. She was painting again, portraits, landscapes, even one of the lakes she hadn't visited since her divorce. I shared updates about the greenhouse, the tomatoes, The fishing trips I now took without a calendar reminder or a lie to double-check. Miranda reached in her leather purse and slid a slim envelope across the table. Closure, she said. Inside, newspaper clippings. Riley's company dissolved. A civil settlement finalized. Assets recovered, publicly. He tried to spin it as a business restructure, but the public saw through it. Do you feel vindicated? She asked. I took a long sip of red wine. No, I feel free. We toasted. To clarity, she said. To double-checking recipients, I replied. And we laughed. Not out of spite, but out of release. Some stories end with slamming doors, screaming matches, courtroom dramas. But real ones, the ones built from silence and observation, end quietly. In paperwork, in photos, in knowing you waited long enough for them to show you who they truly were. The beauty of revenge isn't the noise it makes. It's in the peace that follows.